In this video we are continuing on from the previous exercise where we're learning how to make connections and links between cards in a tarot spread. Yesterday we covered the Four of Wands and the Ace of Cups reversed, and we explored different ways that they could possibly make connections within a spread by looking at them as individual cards, then as cards combined, and then adding extra cards into the mix to pull different threads, to make different stories, to make different scenarios, different situations that may or may not be applicable in a particular reading. So yesterday, just before we finished up on the last video, I pulled the next two cards. So we had, on the top card, we had the Knight of Pentacles, and the base card was Death. Just lift it up to show you here. So these are the two cards we're working with today. So we're going to be working to find connections and links between these cards. And we're going to be adding extra cards to them to kind of flesh out the story, pad it out and embellish it a little bit more, so we can test our imagination, our intuitive responses to the cards, and also what we traditionally know about the cards. And we're going to be doing a bit of free association as well, because a lot of the time that's how you come up with your connections. It's a bit like looking at an image and then kind of letting it go out of focus a little bit to see, let your imagination take over and see where it might lead you. So as with the previous video, I'm just going to put these two aside. I'm working with the Giant Rider-Waite. It gives us a better view of the cards and better detail in the imagery, so we'll just put those to the side. So for starters, we're going to be looking at the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles is of the Pentacle suit, which is governed by the element of earth. Now, immediately that tells us something. Because of our knowledge of elements, we should know what earth means, how it affects how that element affects the person, the individual, the situation that's going on, an attitude and outlook. So in this case, we're looking at the Knight of Pentacles. So he's one of the court cards, which means we could be looking at an actual person, a personality, but we could also be looking at just an attitude, an outlook, a way of living, an attitude towards life, and your world view of things, and the way you conduct your life. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a person, but it just embodies the energy of the Knight of Pentacles. So we're dealing both with the rank of knight and also the suit he comes from, which is governed by earth. So that will kind of influence how we actually look at this card. So what do we know of Pentacles and the earth element? Well, Pentacles, governed by earth, they're hardworking, extremely hardworking. They're very business oriented, they're materially oriented. That means they're interested in money, they're interested in results, and they usually have long-term goals that they work towards diligently. They're very traditional, very conventional, they're results based, quite materialistic, as we said about the money, and they like results. They don't like to get involved in things that don't have a set outcome. They kind of need guarantees, unlike the Wands that will kind of fly by the seat of their pants and see what happens as they go along. The Pentacles will actually need to know that there's some sort of definite result in the offing. They're habitual creatures. They're very possessive. They're territorial. They like ownership of things. They're interested in land, property, the animal kingdom, nature, and very, very steady, very stable, very secure. They're loyal, dependable, and committed to anything they take on. So that's the element of earth to extent. So we're now going to kind of taper it down into how this influences the Knight of Pentacles in particular. So the Knight of Pentacles, because this is going to bear relation to the Death card and how the Death card might be impacting the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles in himself, again, because of his suit is of earth, he's very traditional, very conservative, very conventional, very patient. He's a hard worker, extreme hard worker, dedicated, slow moving. He does a slow progress. We see him on his horse. His horse is the only horse of the knights that actually is standing still, and he's quite a heavy built horse. So he's a very practical choice of animal for this knight, because the knight would possibly need to, he's not for show, he's actually to be productive. So nothing that the Pentacles have would be kind of frivolous or superfluous. Everything has a value and a use. And the Knight of Pentacles will be conservationist as well. He likes to maintain things, preserve things, conserve things. So bear this in mind for when we're looking at the Death card. So he's connected to the earth. We see him out here in a ploughed field. So we get the impression, and his horse looks like kind of a plough horse, a horse you might see on a farm, a working horse. He's certainly not for show. So he could be out in his land, out in his farm, out in his property. This also could be his family land as well. The Pentacles in the suit of earth, are the element of earth, are strongly connected to family. His family is very important to them. Longevity and kind of an ancestral theme to the Pentacles. Their ancestors, their descendants, legacies, inheritances, passing on something to the next generation. They're custodians of their suit. They look at it that they are the guardians, the custodians for a while, and then they pass it on to the next generation. So he's very disciplined, and he's very hardworking, and he's very diligent. So that's our lovely Knight of Pentacles. Now he is like the rest of his suit. He is quite stubborn, and he is quite rigid in his outlook. He doesn't particularly like change. He's not very much open to change. He likes to do things in the old tried and tested method, possibly what he learned from his father or his grandfather. There's a certain way of doing things that he likes. He wouldn't be into all the new fangled gadgets and the new approaches and new processes that the other suits might be engaged with. He likes to keep doing things the way he's always done them, the way they have always been, because they're tried and tested, and that's where he's got his results from. So again, bear that in mind when we're looking at the Death card. So now that's given us an overview of the Knight of Pentacles. So this will help us in discerning how the Death card might influence this young knight. So again, the knight may be a reflection of a particular personality, or an atmosphere or an attitude, or an action card, act like me or don't act like me. Now when it comes up in a reading, you know, it's one of the hardest things to determine whether it's a person or an atmosphere or an energy that it's pertaining to. Sometimes it comes out, it's, you know, extremely obvious, you know, straight off exactly what it is. And other times you might have to explore and kind of push around a little bit to determine exactly what is going on. So we're now going to look at the Death card. So we'll just take up Death. Now, Death is I suppose it's a bit less complicated in itself than, we're not going to be exploring it into the same depth as we have the Knight of Pentacles. Why I went into the Knight of Pentacles in so much depth is because I want you to understand how the Death card might be impacting him. So Death is one of the major arcana cards, and Death is all to do with, it's one of the cards that, just before I go any further, that often terrifies people when they're getting their cards done, because they're afraid that it implies a physical death. Now, there is that association with it as well, and we will be exploring that in the cards when we can links. But death, the overriding meaning of death is change, transformation, the end of an old situation that a new one can begin, clearing out old energy so that new energy can come in. If we hold on to everything in our life all the time, it doesn't allow anything new to come in. Now, death is dependent on how it's experienced. It can be a very difficult transition. Sometimes we oppose change, we resist change, we think that change is not in our own interest. We think that change will actually be the death of us. Sometimes we need a little bit of convincing in that, and we try to hold on for fear of what is out there, what's left for us, or how we're supposed to manage if we let go of things. Now, death death will work with you and cooperate with you as long as you cooperate with it. When death appears in a reading, it's usually an indication that on some level death has been called for. Now, death only ever rides in uncalled for when there's a resistance to change, when it goes against your best interest, where you bog down yourself and you won't move forward, you won't let go, you won't end things, and then the death that happens when a death rides in. He kind of just rides roughshod all over you. And we can see the different attitudes and approaches to how we accept death and how we view death in the different individuals in this card. I mean, the bishop here uses his spiritual understanding to say that death is a natural thing, and he prays that he'll be delivered to a better place, and he trusts in death, but he also feels as well that his religious outlook on life will save him from being totally annihilated under the coups. So he thinks, he might, benefit by making friends with death and welcoming it in, that he won't bear the full brunt of it. But he's using his spiritual beliefs to accept death coming into his life. You see, the king down here has refused to accept death. He thought his very power, his status, maybe his money, he could stop the death happening by just putting his foot down and saying, no, I'm not actually going to let it happen. I refuse to let it happen. I want things the way they are. Death has just taken no notice of him and has just knocked him down and ridden over him. And there's loads of crosses in the background saying he's not the first one. So death will come in and tear away anything that's not good for you, anything that's not in your best interest, bad habits, bad relationships, toxic friendships, careers, jobs, lifestyles that do not suit us. So the king has been cast to the side. The bishop is praying for mercy, and we have this young woman down here. She had gone out and said, yes, I understand that death has to happen, and I will accept it. But at the last minute, she's fearful of what that death might imply for her, and she turns her face away, possibly in the hope that death may not notice her and will just ride on past. So she might be of the belief that she can fix things, or she can sort things out, or the death might be the death of her, and she's afraid that final acknowledgement and finally of letting the death in the door, she turns her head at the last moment. We have this young child down here who welcomes death, brings flowers, has a little posy of flowers in his or her hands, saying, as a little kid, we accept change a lot more. We're more open to change. Our minds haven't closed like they have here. So the child is curious about what death will bring and saying, oh, this might be a bit of fun, because they're not fearful at that stage. Only that fear only sets in from life experiences and are being indoctrination and programming and conditioning from others. So this is where death is. So if we can begin to see a connection here between these two cards. So we have, on one side, we have the Knight of Pentacles, who is quite traditional, conservative, conventional, habitual, predictable, slow-moving, likes to keep things the way they are, likes to, for posterity, and he does what everybody has done before him. He follows in the line of his family. And we have death here, who's bringing change into the picture. So how do we think the Knight of Pentacles is going to react to that? Is he going to be open to it? So we've looked at a suit of earth, a suit of pentacles, and the element of earth. So, I mean, even thinking of all the land, the earth here, death wants to move all that, move it around. It's going to be heavy work trying to shift all that earth. The only time we see a lot of earth move really rapidly is when death rides in really hard and fast and possibly brings the tower with them at the same time, and then we see a massive movement of earth and the destruction it can cause. So the Knight of Pentacles in this case may be opposed to change. He may not be open to new ways. He is this little certain set way of seeing things. So he, seeing death coming his way, he might try and take steps to prevent death from coming. He might resist changes. He might want to hold on to the way he's done things in the past. So the Death card being upright and the Knight of Pentacles card being upright, saying that it hasn't reached a stage yet where there is kind of a mighty showdown in any shape or form. The Knight of Pentacles is staring at death. He's looking at him and he's hoping that he can possibly cheat death in some way and hold on to the way he's been doing things for a long time. So we're going to bring in a couple of extra cards now and see what might be coming of this. So we know, acknowledge that the Knight of Pentacles is going to have a bit of a difficulty with death. And it depends on how open he is and how liberal a pentacle he is as to how he will deal with it. We are hoping, because of his rank, we're looking at as an individual or a mindset, a youngish type of attitude, of let's say 22 to 30, where there is a hope that this guy or this person might be open to maybe even listening to what death has to say and looking at the pros and cons of it, and say, as you know, death tries to convince him that it's in his best interest. He might have a kind of a younger attitude to it, be a little bit more flexible than, let's say, the King of Pentacles, who might at that stage have become so set in his ways. So Knight of Pentacles is still forming. So I'm going to just pull a few cards. I have some already set up so that it's kind of prepared, rather than, you know, grabbing cards like the last time. So hopefully I remember what order I have them in here. So I'm just going to, let's say these cards come out in the rest of the spread, and we see we're going to use these two cards. So it just doesn't matter really what side we put them on. I'm actually going to put death down here, so I hope you can see all that. And we're going to we'll play around with this, with the world reversed. So this comes out from the reading. Now, Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles is holding, like, that's his goal in his mind. He's got a sight set on his future, and he's working very determinedly towards a goal. Now, the Pentacles are of the earth. They like to build on the earth. They're the builders. They build solid, lasting buildings and structures. They're the farmers. If we didn't have them around, we wouldn't have roofs over our heads. We wouldn't have, you know, livestock and food and grain planted and crops. There would be no food stuff around. These are the people who get down and do all that work. They're the hard workers of the land, and everything that we have, own, our possessions, the roof over our head, the cars we drive, is connected. That's the element of earth driving us, because they're quite material. There are possessions or assets. Now, this guy, the Knight of Pentacles, is renowned for looking for high quality qualifications. He's a very committed, dedicated student. So he just started from the Page of Pentacles onwards, working really hard towards a specific goal in mind for his future. So he'd be prepared to put in the years, even though he might know that it might be 30 before he actually fully qualifies and has the expertise to do what he wants to do. He's the guy who will actually go the course with that, and he won't be veered off that direction. He holds his goal and he said, this is it. Every time he feels in doubt of some shape or form, he takes that pentacle out and reminds himself, and that's what he's working with. He will make do with a cheaper horse than let's say this is his car. So he buys maybe an older car that's not as fancy, second hand. It's what gets him around. The other knights are buying all these fancy jobbies to make themselves look flash, their age group as well. This could be, you know, an old Jeep, an old Land Cruiser that's done many years of hard work, but it's still going, and he's fixed it up. So this is what he's diligently working towards his future. And because I'm going to work with these cards on the basis that he's working towards maybe being an engineer, maybe being a builder, establishing his own building company. Maybe he's an architect. He's going to be designing houses of the future. So he's been working towards that. Now, we have this card here over the world. So this is the world he has been working towards. That's the world he wants to go into. That's where he wants to take his place in the world and to excel. So his goal is to complete his training and become this really well-established builder, top class, high quality, good stuff. The world is reversed. So it means the world that he's actually working towards has changed. Something has happened in that world, has changed. So this change has brought into the world. So what all his plans, possibly everything he was working towards, then what happens to them? Does he keep going after them regardless, or does he have to change direction along the way? Does he have to change the plan? Now, why has the world turned upside down? Now, this would be very relevant in recent times, and this would have come up a lot for me in readings I was doing with clients. The Five of Pentacles. So those two together would be suggesting the change that has come about in the world is possibly being to do with global recession. And where did the global recession hit the most? The construction industry. Engineers were superfluous, builders were superfluous, businesses closed down, people lost jobs, people were homeless, they had spent a huge amount of money on huge mortgages, and suddenly the whole world changed, literally overnight. This change was quite sudden and dramatic, and see the king down here, he would have been one of the big, big players of the day, lots of money, the big companies, and gone overnight, nothing, broke, totally bankrupt. So we have all different aspects here of the change going on. So this reversed world card and the Five of Pentacles could suggest that this person, maybe the reading is about that, oh my gosh, the world turned upside down. This is a certain huge change in the plans that you have made for yourself. And what you are working towards is no longer applicable in this new world. So that would have been his world upright. Now, if we had that reversed, and that possibly then the recession is beginning to recover, and the changes that occurred in the past, he can still work towards his goal. It may take a longer time to get there, because this is now the 21, this card, so it's far off in the distance. He may need to work longer and harder to get there, but there's a possibility. So if that came up in a later reading saying that things are beginning to improve, you're beginning to get out of the mess and the financial disaster, and that the global economy is beginning to recover, and that again would bring in another change, but who is left standing at that stage to benefit from it? So that is one way, a couple of ways of looking at those cards. Now we're going to bring another Pentacle card into the mix here. So adding that in, you can see that we've got the Four of Pentacles, and we see this is another card from the suit of Pentacles and of the earth element. So we see this guy here holding on. These are all his possessions, his money, his way of life, his plans for his future. He's has guarded those, fanatically guarded those. He's obsessed with those, and he's holding on to them very rigidly. He's not prepared to let go without a fight. So we have Death card coming in here, wanting to take those from this guy, wanting to release him, and he will not budge in it. So we could have the Knight of Pentacles, we've got the Seven of Wands coming in here beside him. We might see in this reading, oh gosh, there's a resistance, isn't it, to the Death card coming in. He's not going to go down without a fight. And because these are all wands here, it's the suit of fire, we have a lot of people saying, but you've got to let go. You've got to move with the times. You can't keep doing things the way you're doing. Everything has changed. You need to allow change in. And he's kind of stubbornly refusing. He's not going to go down without a fight. Even in this card, we could see him here as well, because these particular cards in the wands do bring in a stubbornness and a belligerence into, which would suit the knight's attitude. And in the Nine of Wands here, we see this guy has worked so hard, he's held on for so long. These are all his possessions, his assets, that the Knight of Wands is guarding furiously. And he said, I know, I understand that things are hard and things need to change, and I need to let change in. But he says, I'm going to give this one last shot. I'm going to do my best and see if I can hold on here as long as possible. Surely if I work really, really hard, I'll be able to hold on. So, he's sometimes maybe flogging a dead horse. He might be closed. We bring in the Two of Swords here if we saw that in the reading. He might be very, very closed to listening to, just put that down for a second, take these guys up here. These are all who are kind of throwing the argument at him and telling him about the need to let go of what he's doing. It's like he's defending his castle here, or as if the bailiffs are coming in, or people are saying that we could look at it as even they want to build a road through his property, or they want to cut down something, that a tree that is that's been there for hundreds of years, and he's saying no, no, no. So these are all the ones trying to enforce the change. They're wands, they're fire. They like change, they enjoy change, and they don't want to, they don't understand the attitude of this guy. So with the Two of Swords coming in, we see the Knight of Pentacles now is very closed. He's not open to negotiation. He doesn't want to even discuss with them the changes that are coming in. He's holding on to the way he's doing things. He's not going to go down without a fight. He's going to, night and day, he's going to guard that which he is defends and what means something to him, because the Pentacles have very strong values about things and they don't compromise on them very easily. So we have this closed attitude with the Two of Swords and not open to negotiation. Now if we had if we put even the Hierophant in there as well. So the Hierophant ties in very well with the Pentacles, because the Hierophant is actually one of the cards for Taurus, which is of the earth element, along with the Four of Pentacles. So they're again doubling up on this traditional conservative kind of narrow-minded attitude toward things and not allowing change to come in. The Hierophant is, you know, very opposed to change. He's been doing something the same way for a long time, just like the Knight of Pentacles, who would say, I don't want to let go, I don't want change to come in to the situation. Now to change this around, we could have the Four of Pentacles now suddenly is reversed, and it changes things immediately. And let's say if we reverse the Seven of Wands as well. So we now have a situation where, and if we reverse the Two of Swords, he's finally given in. It could be the Nine of Wands as well. Now, he just might be admitting defeat. He's broken. He's gone as far as he can with the situation, and he now has to really open to the possibility of allowing this death come in and to change things. So we see him letting go here, which is one of the meanings of the Death card. So this is doubling up here as in letting go, giving in, giving way, getting over it. So he's letting go. He's prepared maybe to concede some of what's been asked for him to let go. He mightn't give it all away. He might not be prepared to let go of everything. So we see the arguments have overwhelmed him here, and he realizes now he has to be practical as well, and the Pentacles are practical. They're logical at the end of the day, and you know, common sense in that he can't hold out indefinitely, but he has put in the good fight. So he's now prepared to let these people into the situation and to listen to the arguments, and now he's prepared to negotiate as well. He's ready to talk about it and to hear the different opinions and to give his own opinion as well. So that once he does that, the changes that take place may be painful for him, but once he cooperates with the changes of death, they won't have as dreadful an impact on him as if death has to rip away from him that which he refuses to give. So we're going to move on quickly now to next batch of cards. So we'll have a look at death now in its actual real form as death, maybe the death of somebody. So we know the Pentacles being the earth sign, they often they're strongly connected to legacies, inheritances, people leaving things, some wills, property changing from parents to children, inheriting land. So when we see the Death card, and there's a possibility that this Knight of Pentacles is coming into an inheritance. But what cards would give us a clue as to that? We could possibly have something like this, a scenario like this turning up, where we have the Emperor reversed. Now the Emperor upright is the father figure card. The Empress is generally the mother figure card in the archetypes in the major arcana. So it is a major arcana card as well, which suggests this was a very strong influence life, somebody very important. So as the Emperor, it would be quite likely that this was the Knight of Pentacles' father, uncle, grandfather, some masculine figure who held a lot of power. Now he would have had his domain and his kingdom, his realm. So possibly when we reverse the Emperor or the Empress, and sometimes court cards reversed can suggest a person who's no longer there, and especially if we see the death card or an illness card, and that this person may have passed. So we might be looking at the son or the daughter, the Knight of Pentacles, left behind after the parent has deceased. The Six of Pentacles coming in is again strongly related to wills, legacies. We see this could have been the Emperor dispersing his assets, see who gets what, and trying to be as fair as he possibly can. But he will make sure that his finances are transferred into the correct hands. And no better person than the young Knight of Pentacles, who will now become the custodian and guardian and defender of everything that the Emperor has left behind. So we could see that the death of the father, the Emperor, he has now come into his inheritance. The Knight of Pentacles may have been left all that land, a farm, property, a business. So we can see where those connections might be made if they come up in cards connecting the Knight of Pentacles and death. So we move on. See what might come up next. This is an interesting one. The Knight of Pentacles, he's not the Knight of Pentacles usually puts his career ahead of relationships, but when he does get involved in a relationship, it will be for him a very long-term situation. He's not looking for, turnover of relationships. He's looking for somebody who can commit to him, he can commit to, and they have a long-term future together. So that's the vein of the element of earth all the time. They're looking for something solid, something lasting. So we have the Knight of Pentacles, who's taken time out of his work, let's say, to fall in love, to get involved in a relationship with this nice young woman or man, depending on whatever the situation is. And he now sees something more than work. He sees this this new person in his life, and she is very special to him, and he's very much in love with her. So if we see it in the upright state, we could suggest maybe that up to now, maybe the Knight of Pentacles, he might be saying, God, it's been work, 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 study, 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 constantly grinding forward on your big plan, but something has changed. Possibly this person who's come into the Knight's life has had a dramatic change, a dramatic impact. Maybe he now gets off his horse occasionally, takes off his work clothes, gets dressed up and goes out with her and to have a nice time. And there's something else to his life. So that might have brought a big change. Even his friends and family might be saying, wow, the difference that this relationship has made now. Things could change. If this card was turned around, we may have the Knight of Pentacles either holding on to a situation, a relationship that maybe that relationship is beginning to die, or it has died, or it's over. Now, it could be him that he has held in his hand, and he's saying, this is what I want, and this I thought I was going to go the full term with this relationship. So it may be hard for him to let go, because they're quite possessive, quite territorial, the Pentacles, and it might be that the relationship is over, but he's finding it hard to move on and to let go of that relationship. Hasn't worked out for him, so he now has to let go. Which it would be very hard for him to do. He has to let go and accept the fact that maybe the relationship is over, maybe the relationship is dead. And if we put that card into play, the Eight of Cups, we see him now walking away from the relationship, moving on, emotionally moving on, having the strength to cut the ties, to move on. Now, it might be something that he's not doing. This Death card might be saying, you need to move on because this relationship is over, and there's no point you holding on or saying that I don't want to be over, because it is actually over for you. So we can see by just flicking the card, if this was reversed, we might have the Knight of Pentacles stuck in the situation where he won't move on, he won't let go, and the Death card saying you have to let go, it's over, you must let go, and he's saying no, he's kind of stuck in the middle. Or it could be, the person is still fixated on the Knight of Pentacles, and the Death card might be coming in for them, saying that they have to let go. So I hope you find, where I'm coming from with those connections in the cards. And we'll move on now to see what else we can come up with. The Pentacles, as you know, are the students, the scholars. They're very much into education, long-term education. They'll be going all the way through to the PhDs, and you know they're constantly learning, and they don't mind what age they are by the time they finish. So we often find there's another Pentacle card coming in. The Three of Pentacles is often the college card, study. Those college years where you're learning, and your mentors and your lecturers. So perhaps the Knight of Pentacles has been in college, and what would the Death card suggest? Maybe it would suggest that that time is coming to an end. If we reverse that card, we could find that the Knight of Pentacles, his college days are over. He's now making the transition from college, from being a student. And what if we bring in this card? This turns up in the reading besides the Knight. College days are over. It's time to move on. If I had the Four of Wands around here, I might be able... the Four of Wands, have it here. This would be another card for this big graduation card. So we could have that coming up. College is over, graduation, everybody's received their degrees, diplomas, their masters, their PhDs, and the Knight of Wands, or Knight of Pentacles now has to move into the real world and apply everything he's learnt in his college years into this world. So we get that transition, leaving an old way behind, moving into something new. And it's often a difficult transition because the Knight of Pentacles has been in, you know, a learning environment. And when a student leaves school, there are all these graduations, they've got all their degrees, and then they have to actually make it applicable and make it work for them in the world and make a success of it in the world. So we can see what that transition, the death transition, may have happened, and big changing over. It's same as when let's say the Page of Pentacles leaves primary school to go into secondary school, to go to secondary school to go into college. They're little mini deaths because there's been a certain world you've been living, a certain way of living, and then you've got to leave that behind and move into something new. Even the young child starting school for the first time would experience that death of leaving behind the closeness and, you know, one-to-one of the parent to go out into this new world and start become independent. So that's another way of looking at those cards, and we'll see what else we have here now. Okay, we know that Pentacles are very materialistic. That's what kind of makes them tick. Money is important, finances, assets, possessions, working, acquiring more money, acquiring more possessions. So that's what's extremely important to them. So if we had the Devil card coming in, so we see the Devil is a card that's for materialism, seeing only the price of everything but the value of nothing, that it's work, getting more money to feed an extravagant, superfluous, superficial life. It's just money. So we see if that came in beside the Knight of Pentacles, we might be looking at a situation where this guy is together with the, by the way, together with the Devil, the Knight of Pentacles can often represent the earth sign of Capricorn, which again is connected with money, material side of the world. That's what the things that are important to them, that may not be important to others, but it's particular of Capricorn to have those qualities and traits. So we see the Knight of Pentacles, he has his back turned to the Devil. Could it be the Death card is coming in because he is now moving away from the material world? He's not, that no longer holds any interest from him. He's become a slave. Maybe this is him here. He's a slave to the job, slave to the system, slave to the big mortgages, big cars that have to be paid for all the time. Maybe he's tired of it all. Maybe he just wants to go and live off the land. Or it could be saying that this is what he is like, and the Death card is saying you really need to do something. You need to bring change into your life because there's a rot setting in somewhere that's not good and it's not healthy for you. If we had, just think of this card, the Knight of Pentacles, or the King of Pentacles would be pretty much like his father, the Knight of Pentacles' father. And if we lined him up beside that, like father, like son. That was the father. He's following in his father's footsteps, you know, building the empire, acquiring more assets. I mean, the Pentacles in that frame would be saying you can never have enough money, never have enough assets, never have enough property. So they're constantly acquiring things, which the devil would be driving them, fanning the flames, driving to that. So the Knight of Pentacles is following in his father's footsteps, but the Death card is suggesting that there's something wrong, that there's change needed somewhere along the way, that the Knight of Pentacles maybe needs to alter course or actually stop and think of what he's doing, because he's getting tied into a situation that might not be what he wants at the end of the day. And if we reverse the King of Pentacles here, we have a different scenario. We have somebody maybe going off the straight and narrow where finances and business is concerned, and maybe getting involved in corrupt dealings, illegal dealings, acquiring the money in kind of underhand ways, scamming systems to get money. So the devil will be encouraging that. So maybe the Death card is saying that has to change, that has to go. You've got to stop. You're still upright. You haven't turned into maybe a father. We could think of the mob, you know. Maybe he's going that direction, and the Death card is saying stop. But if we put in the Nine of Cups, which is the wish card, and it's the card about, you know, acquiring personal happiness, joy, that at the end of the day, it's a 9 card is coming to the end of the Cups journey. What they've been seeking for all their lives is happiness and joy, personal happiness. The money is great, yes, but it's not everything. Money cannot buy you happiness. So if we had this card here in an upright situation, we might be seeing that this is what the Knight has believed would bring him happiness: working, money, having things, having and getting all the time, you know, keeping up with everybody else, just nothing but work, work, work. That's the thought. Said, I'd be happy if I could get the big house. I could be happy about the big car, and you know, plenty of money. And he's wished for that, and he has got it. The wish card would be saying upright that he got what you wished for. But if we reverse that, maybe he got what he wished for, and now it's a case of he doesn't want it. Or the moral of that card often is, in reverse, is be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And when it's reversed, we talk about a lack of inner happiness, not being happy with the outcome of a situation, not being happy with what you have. So saying that money has not brought him the happiness he was looking for. If we turn it this way, and we can make a connection again, if the Knight of Pentacles has his back to the devil, he's moving away from the devil, and he's seeking the change, the death of the situation, to cut ties, sever ties with the devil, the whole material side of life, to go in search of something that will give him the personal happiness and fulfillment that he's been looking for so long. So when we play around those cards, we can see what meanings we get out of that. Coming back to the work situation and the overworking and the material side of the Pentacles and the striving constantly for more, we could have, let's bring in the Ten of Cups into this. So the Knight of Pentacles is out. He's working hard for all his family. There he is there. That's the land he's built his house on. He's got his children playing happily beside him. And he's saying, look at everything we have, and we are so happy, so happy. So in that situation, that would be really, really nice. There's nothing wrong with that. Here he is, busy working away, doing it all for his family. But it means, because he's his back to the family, it means he has to leave them a lot. He doesn't get to spend a lot of time with them. So maybe his partner has to do all that end of things, the family part of things, while he's out. He'd be the old-fashioned kind of the provider, going out to work. So he's, look at all the work he's doing. So he's just working 24/7 all the time. Why is the Death card coming in there, saying that he may not be able to sustain that situation? Something is going to give, and the Death card could be coming in here as a warning to say something. You know, look, if we bring in the Two of Pentacles, if that appeared in the card reading, we might be wondering, are you able to balance your work, home life properly? Is that the Death card hinting at that? You know, this guy looks very much on his toes. He's quite tense looking. How long will he be able to keep up all the hard work and all the juggling, and to keep this happy situation as well? So if we reverse that, and reverse that, the Death card might be saying that trouble ahead. You need to change direction quickly. You need to change your way. You need to possibly cut back on a bit of your work, not be working so hard, come home on time. He's neglecting the family. The family are beginning to learn to live without him, and he's maybe at risk of the death of his marriage, his relationship, the death of his connection with his children, his family. That there is where this, radical change needs to be made. If we brought in Temperance card, we see that's the card again about balance, having the right mix of things, having the right mix of home, work environment. And if they were reversed, coming in beside in the reading, we'd be seeing that everything's out of balance, and this is the price that's going to be paid. So the Death card is saying, stop now, change is necessary. So we can see where we're getting those cards from. It's just an interesting exercise of just playing around with the cards and just see what we can come up with. We can have a look at these. If we bring in the Four of Cups, we can see a bored looking figure there. Sometimes you get bored from just doing the same thing all the time, that your life is the same. It's you fell into a job, you fell into a career, you fell into a situation, and it's pretty boring. And the Knight of Pentacles may take some time to come to that realization. So if we had this card coming in, the Three of Wands, which is a fire card, and it's about moving forward, adventure, leaving behind an old way of life, and spreading your wings and going somewhere unusual, and a bit of excitement about it, which is very different from the Pentacles way of being. The Pentacles, you see the horse is standing stock still. It doesn't really move. So the Knight of Pentacles may not have moved very far out of his territory, but now this Four of Cups is coming in. This boredom has set in, and he's beginning to think, let's say bring the Two of Wands in, he's beginning to look at his world and say, this was supposed to be so special to me, this goal I had in mind, but now I'm not getting the fulfillment out of it that I used to. So he's thinking about what he's going to do. The Pentacles would rarely just jump up and run off like the Wands would and just, pack their bags and go. It would take a lot of deliberation for him to change his world so radically. So if we see the Three of Wands are coming in, that we can say, oh my gosh, this guy has really, really changed life. He's giving up possibly everything that he's worked for in search of excitement and adventure and freedom, because in this card he wouldn't be very free. He's tied to obligations and duties and commitments, so he's changing his life drastically. At boredom, he's moving on to something else. Let's see if there's anything else now before we finish up. Oh, this is an interesting one here. I had this out earlier. The Knight of Pentacles, the Three of Cups. This is the friendship card, groups of friends, your social circle, those you hang around with, your work colleagues, family members, and they usually, you can see them, they're raising their glasses, they're having a good time, they could be out drinking, partying, dancing. What if we had it reversed? So when the Three of Cups reverses, we often have to question the nature of the socializing that's going on, the people involved, and very often with the cups it can say there's too much partying going on, there's too much drinking, there's too much socializing, and not enough time focused on commitment. If we had, let's say, the Knight of Swords reversed, or the Knight of Wands, or both of them, and these two cards, because these are court cards and they're the same rank as the Knight. So if we're talking about friends here, these are similar age, they're all in the same rank, so he could be hanging around with, these could be his influencers, or a group that he's fallen under the influence of. If we had them reversed, we might find the Knight of Pentacles hanging out with the group that really are taking his focus and attention maybe away from his studies, away from his career plan, away from his commitments and duties. They're a bad influence on him, and the Death card might be saying you need to get rid of them, you need to move out of that, you need to cut the ties with those, because they're doing nothing for you, they're bringing you down. if that card came up, so you'd be seriously questioning the group he's hanging around, the people he's hanging around. It wouldn't be like the Knight of Pentacles to do that type of thing, because he's fairly strong and he normally stays away from that. But we're all human and something could have happened. Perhaps the relationship that didn't work out may have thrown him off balance for a while and he might go a little bit crazy. But the Death card comes in to say, whoa, 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 enough is enough is enough. You're going to lose focus. You're not going to achieve all the things you set your heart out to achieve if you continue in this frame of mind. There's too much drinking, there's too much partying, there's too much excess, and it's going to lead to trouble. So the Death card is saying that has to go, which is an interesting one. That actually comes up quite a lot with people. You know, it doesn't have to be just young people, it's older people as well who are just in with the wrong crowd, and the Death card often appears then to say that that has to go. Or it can come in, the Death card can come in the past that you moved away from a circle and you're now trying to put your life together. It could have been drugs, drink, anything that is a bad influence, and you're moving away. The Devil card would often appear in that situation as well. Toxic friendships, toxic relationships, toxic groups. So I think we might leave it there. And before I do, I mean, there's loads of other variations, but we have to draw a line somewhere. There's loads of variations. But before I do, I'm going to see what cards we have next, and I move those to the side. And I really do hope you got something out of all those connections. I went through them very fast, but I tried to explain them as much as possible. And do those exercises yourself to see what else you can come up with. Literally, if you go through the cards, you come up hundreds of them, but it just helps to prepare you to make connections when you see cards in a reading together. So the next one, the next text, I've got the Two of Cups, which we were just talking about, the Knight of Pentacles relationship. And the base card is, oh, another cup, Page of Cups. So we have Two of Cups and Page of Cups. So we'll be exploring the connections between those. Because they're cups, there is a connection already. And I'm already picking up things between them. But we're going to be looking at them individually, as a pair, and then throwing in other cards to see how the stories might change. Upright cards, reverse cards, to see what influence they bring to bear. Because you know, just putting different cards in can change the whole storyline. So they're the two cards that we'll be looking at. So maybe if you want to work on those yourself before we look at them in depth and see what you can come up with.